Welcome to this week's discussion. We will continue our discussion on organizational change. Today we are going to discuss on the behavioral reactions to organizational change. So the today's discussion will be centered around concept and issues of behavioral reaction to organizational change, process and the level of changes. So, what we have seen in the earlier discussions is that, in spite of many of the attempts which are taken to minimize the resistance to change in an organization, some of the reactions of the employees to organizational change are inevitable. So, and mostly the negative reactions may be manifested in overt behavior, or change may be resisted in a passive way. So, it is very important for the managers to understand their change leadership behavior, because it causes a complex range of responses that are not very simple in nature, and we just cannot classify it as a good or bad reaction that the employees are having towards organizational change. So sometimes it is a mixed feeling, sometimes it is a feeling of uncertainty. So if we given a clarity, a positive negative phase may has the possibility to change to a positive one. So changes in the organizations are invariably going to impact the roles of the management and also the structure and operations of the organization. So we have to understand who are the change targets in the organization. The change targets are the individuals and groups in the organization, because they are the subject to the change process. So, and the change agent is the person who acts as a catalyst and assumes the responsibility for managing the change process. So, organizational change, we understand, takes place in anticipation of the pressure from the maybe inside the organization, or from the external environment, and there are many human reactions to the demands of change processes in the like when change comes in the structure, technology, task and people in the organization, because the people and the groups are the subject to change processes. So they may demonstrate various kinds of reactions to the change process. So it's very important to understand the behavioral reaction to change. Here we have tried to classify the different behavior and what the managers can do in order to answer to that behavior. Like if the behavior demonstrated is that seems risky, then the managers as a catalyst has to make people understand the risk is worth definitely, because the not to change is even riskier. So if the demonstrated behavior is that of the fear of the unknown, then it should be the manager should be providing information to and encourage people to change. So sometimes there are suggestions like a particular suggestion worked in the past. So in that cases, if the change has to be initiated, if people have to start thinking in a new way, then we have to acknowledge that yes, something may have worked in the past, but in the change situation the same cannot work in the similar way, and we have maybe to try out with new things. So if the demonstrated behavior is there is no felt need to change, then the reactions in order to facilitate the changes demonstrate the problem or opportunity. If the demonstrated behavior is the need for safety, then we had to discuss about the clarity of the intentions and methods, so that the people get a feeling like their the basic physiological and the psychological needs are not going to suffer in the organization as a process of the change which is going to be initiated. Then it is sometimes we have we see the behavior, okay, that is not our cup of tea, it is to be like to be taken up by somebody else. Then the we should motivate people by telling, like, okay, there is nothing in trying new things. So if we talk of like it is a poor timing, then we have to tell, like, okay, we have to wait for better time, and maybe like how much we can delay and wait for the better time. So if it is a lack of resources, then provide adequate resources, and or to like the either to provide adequate resources or make people do realistic expectations, that is the cut down the expectations. There are like some important behavioral reactions to change. So we are discussing of fear many a times because it is one of the prominent behavioral demonstrations that we see, like the fear of unknown, fear of uncertainty of what is there in the future, then fear of like changing. So these are the fears like which is there in the people mind. So fear of job security. So it is one of the most common human reaction to any sort of change. So, and this gets demonstrated into questions like whether, like fear about job security and satisfaction, demotions, and pay cuts. So when people get this fear become very severe, some employees may refuse to believe that they are capable of making the change or develop health concerns due to panic or stress. So if we understand people are suffering from any kind of this type of fear, then they need to be like handholded properly, counseled properly, coached properly to understand there is nothing to be fearful about. They need to try out with the changes that are upcoming and try to see like what they can contribute to the process of change. Um, Frustration is another thing, which is another rather important reaction that we see. So sometimes what happens when there is a tranquility, when there is a status quo, people are very satisfied in doing whatever they're doing because it gives stability. Their work is in a very routine fashion. They know when to start, when to end, and maybe when to give time to other things. So, but when there is a disturbance in the status quo, which obviously any change is going to disturb your state of tranquility, status quo, so that can spark hostility from the employees. So this anger may be visible in terms of emotional outburst or repressed, such as for long time employee who unexpectedly quits. So frustration may also cause employees to publicly question company leadership, especially if an already angry employee is assigned to a new boss. So these are some of the demonstrations, the behavioral demonstrations to organizational change, which is alarming, and the leaders is supposed to like take care of these issues. Enthusiasm. Um, so this is where some employees may warmly embrace a leader's call for change, as this group may see opportunity for themselves or perceive the change as the natural next step in the life of the company. So, and others may understand it that the change is necessary for the company's survival. Next important thing which needs to be discussed over here is that of gossip. So, mm, whenever there is a gap of information, then to fill up that gap, whenever the people make certain assumptions, and that spreads in forms of gossip. So it is always an organization's challenge, uh, because gossip often escalates during periods of change. Employees who feel a loss of power and control may respond with frustration, anger, and disbelief and resort to vicious gossips. Unfortunately, this gossip is very detrimental to positive forward thrust during change, and that needs to be taken care of. So, when we understand like there is no proper information flow from the change initiators, then in that whole vacuum, in that space where it gets filled up with like information coming from other sources which may not be reliable, and trying to give rise to various reactions from the employees, which ultimately emerges as gossip. So if we have to deal with gossips and grapevines, then proper information should come down from the change agents initiators themselves, so that people become aware of whatever is there in ways ahead or in future. Sorry. Panic. Some employees, finding comfort in a predictable routine, panic at the mere mention of change. They worry about changes in the way they normally proceed in their job. They may resist not out of stubbornness but out of fear about how the changes is going to impact them personally. So in that case, if they're about to like if they're counseled properly, if proper goal setting technique is taken with them, so that their targets are set in an incremental way, proper time management is done, they're made to understand about how to do time management, then this panic is going to go away. Another behavioral reaction to change is that of disengagement. So, disengagement is a psychological withdrawal from change. The employee may appear to lose initiative and interest in the job. Disengaged employees are physically present but mentally they are absent. So they generally mentally withdraw from the process, and whether it is progressing or whether the organization is regressing really doesn't affect them mentally. So they are physically present in the organization for the sake of continuing in the organization, but they are mentally absent. So that is called becoming disengaged. Disidentification. Uh, Individuals reacting in this way feel that their identity has been threatened by the change. So many a times they cling to a past procedure because they had a sense of mastery over it and it gave them a sense of security. Sometimes what happens or people attach their identity towards particular skills that they have developed or particular positions that they hold in the organization. So when these becomes challenged and they have to learn something new, something afresh, they do not want to lose the identity that they used to have, and by having a sense of mastery over certain processes or occupying certain positions, and that is why they sometimes mm, show a disidentification with the process of change. Disorientation. Disoriented employees feel lost and confused and often are unsure of their feelings. They waste energy attempting to figure out what to do instead of how to do things. They are the people who do not have a clear idea about like um, what is the change process, how it is getting initiated, what it is up to, and more so what is in there for them as their takeaway, or what they need to contribute in the change process. So there is no clarity of thought for them, and that's why they become disoriented and confused, and they try to find out what to do instead of like how to do something, because or so that um, they go on attempting for the like activities rather than understand zeroing down on particular thing and progressing forward it in how to improve on it. Disenchantment is a expression of negativity or anger by the employees who realize the past is gone, and sometimes they run mad about it. So they try to enlist support of others by forming coalitions. So if something was very dear to me, some position was very dear to me in the past, and when I see like those power is gone out of my hand and new things are coming in, people are mm, reacting in different ways. So they give rise to an expression of negativity or anger. And what they try to do is they try to form a group of coalitions who are going to support their ideas, and they try to form a subgroup, like of people who are going to support their own ideas of like whatever they were doing in the past. So this behavior is called disenchantment. So if we see like uh, we can classify, we can represent in the form of a graph both the positive and the negative response to change. So what we see like the range starts moves from like the optimism in one end the scale to the pessimism in the other end, where there is a fear and pessimism and optimism in the other end. So the first state, if you can see, it is a state of blissful ignorance, so uninformed optimism. So because we are not informed about what is going to happen next, so this gives rise to uninformed optimism, a positive look and certainty. So this is called blissful ignorance. So after this, when the people gets informed about the change starts, so this state is called informed anguish. So when people get to know like that there is a change is upcoming, it sometimes gives rise to the state of what we call informed pessimism, or it starts giving the doubt in the it starts giving doubt in the people's mind. So after the doubt is done, so people go through various like checking behaviors. So this is called over checking out, trying to figure out really what is happening and how they're going to fit in what is the like expected behavior, and looking within also, which we call covert checking out. After we go do this self checks for ourselves, we see the study the environment and do the scanning and find out where we stand and where we need to progress. So then what is termed is coming to terms. It is called hopeful realism. We hope like if the change process is initiated, if it begins, it is going to create a positive impact in the future. So and this you find is the timeline. So in the realistic support, the next term is the realistic support, where you find informed optimism, which is the confidence. So from uninformed optimism, which is certainty, the with time, after passing through this valley of where you find there is informed anguish, then overt and covert checking taking place, giving rise to coming to terms. Then there is a realistic support where people have informed optimism. Yes, they are optimistic because they know like change is definitely going to bring in some positive results, and they are able to deal with the change demands of the change. That gives rise to confidence in the people. On the other hand, there is a negative response to change also. What we see like it has again two endpoints. One is the active reactions to negative response to change, and passive um, response to change, which is the emotional response, and this is with time. So at the start, when you find there is a stability, this is the at the start when you find stability, this is the tranquil state. Then when the change is initiated, sometimes we see some passive reactions like immobilization. So mm, we are not ready to move from our stable ideas, old mindset. So that is immobilization. Then maybe we realize like the change is inevitable, but we though like at the back of our mind we realize it, but uh, generally we deny like yes, change is required, but it is for others, it is not for us, it is not required for us, and we try to deny the change. So when it moves to the, but with time, when it shows like yes, we cannot avoid change. So the active reaction that is demonstrated is that of anger. We are very angry with the like the change process which disturbs our state of stability. Then in order to bring our state back to the maybe a new stability, over time we start bargaining over like what to change, how much to change, and why. So after the initial point of anger is over, people start bargaining about how much to change, what is the least effort that can be taken for change, so that people can resort back to the stable state. So after that, again, people may drop down to the state of when we talk of depression, which is a passive state, like nothing good is happening. Okay, I am not able to see anything bright in the future. So it is happening because others are maybe are accepting. I am not able to cope up with the change. So those kind of things will give rise to depression. And then again with time we go on testing for it. This could be this again the overt and the covert testing, and the final active response would be the acceptance of the change process. So we see like people go on demonstrating the negative response to change more like either in a active way or in a passive way. So these is what we can visualize, but these happens within the mind of the individual, and sometimes we are not as change agents. If we do not know these things, then it is very difficult to understand the behavioral thought processes and the demonstrated behaviors that's going on in the uh, person's mind and what that person can do next. So we cannot connect the behavior with each other and relate like this behavior is happening because of the change process that is initiated. So there are three sets of behavioral change principles, like the Roger Philby, the CEO of the chemistry group UK, has identified a set of three principles of behavioral change for the workplace, such as behavioral change needs a support network. Individuals make the behavioral change in groups, support from people who are all going through the same changes. A group dynamics can motivate people to adopt the behaviors they know more quickly and more effectively. So, when there is a like minded people, people who are going through the same set of consequences, they are or have under been in the change process and have lived through the process of change and survived. So, they can act as a support network to like deal with the some of the behavioral behaviors demonstrations during the change processes, to deal with some of the passive responses to the change and make people overcome the stress and anxiety that they feel during the change process. So a subject expert is sometimes it's taken to be wrong teacher, because people of the same status who had the similar kind of fate and survived through it, they sometimes are better teachers in terms of giving the feedback and in terms of sharing their more in-depth experiences and the context and the processes. And just like uh, they can like share their experiences, and they're much better teacher in making a people understand what are the realities of undergoing through a change process, rather than just telling like at the end this is waiting for you. So experience of people who have survived through the process of change and has become successful, their feedback is really very important as to be shared for to motivate other people and make themselves encouraged to the change process. So focus on one step at a time is another important lesson. So it is very important, like the manager should uh, we do one thing at a time, so and become consistent in it before going to the next thing. So behavioral changes, what happens in many cases, gives rise to dilemma. So when there are multiple work assigned to be completed in a given time frame, we have already discussed earlier that in order for a change to happen, it really takes time. It is a time consuming exercise. If we want, like the people have a awareness of the change, they just do a self search for themselves, find out for themselves like why the change is required, get satisfied with the answers that they get for themselves, that is given by the organization, come to terms with it, like understand for themselves, yes, change is required and it is inevitable, and then like we have to move forward with it, come to understanding like how they can contribute towards it, try take initiatives in trying out certain steps for themselves. Yes, errors will be done definitely, but again, like what is the facilitating environment, what is the trust level of the organization to allow them to get well adjusted into the situation, maybe take their suggestions, respect them, recognize them. All these t- is time consuming, because everywhere people is moving from a dilemma, because from a dilemma from known to unknown, dilemma from being certain to moving to uncertain. So and this adjustment, coming to terms with new things, really takes time, and it has to be like progressed in a very like incremental steps. So one step done, it solidifies, and then we move on to the next step. So if like multiple works are assigned at a particular time, so uh, then it can like creates further confusion into the whole system. So there are various levels of organizational change. Just to recapitulate, we have already discussed it earlier. Like there are changes at the individual level, there are changes at the group level, and like there are changes at the organizational level. So in the changes in the individual level is reflected in job assignments, physical moves to different locations, or change in the maturity of a person, which occurs over time and have repercussions beyond the individuals. Then group level changes are changes which has an effect on the workflow, job design, social organization, then the status system within the organization and communication pattern, as because as most of the operations in the are organized at a on a group basis. So, an organizational level changes are it involves major programs that affect both individual and group, as decisions at this level are mainly taken by the senior management. We will take a short break over here We'll resume again with the remaining parts of the lecture on different types of organizational change, TQM and the change process, then the VUCA environment and change. So stay tuned with us, meeting you shortly. Thank you.